Namaskar students. Hope you are hale and hearty, taking care of your health and your studies. My name is Jyotsna and I am from Education Department, Chandigarh. We cannot succeed if half of us are held back. That's what Malala Yousafzai mentioned in her book. Malala, a girl from Pakistan who was awarded Peace Prize in 2014. In these lines, she talks about the discrimination, probably on the basis of gender. But history speaks for itself. There had been numerous occasions when people were discriminated on the basis of their caste, color, or creed. And yes, never to forget, gender. Our today's session will revolve around this only. We are going to take up chapter number 8 from grade 8 book, Our Past Part 3. The name of the chapter is Women, Caste and Reform. So without wasting any time, let's get going. You can tell the condition of a nation by looking at the status of its women. This is a famous quote by Jawaharlal Nehru on women. The status of women depicts the social, economic and mental condition in a nation. Women have been regarded as a symbol of spirituality in our scriptures. Yet, they have been treated badly and unequally to men. Social evils such as dowry, sati system, child marriage and female infanticide were widely prevalent in early ages. The spread of education and self-consciousness among women has led to their progress over the period. Women of today are empowered. Also, women are gaining advancements and success in each and every field. In today's modern world, girls go to school and study with boys. After growing up, they go to colleges and universities and take up jobs after that. Before getting legally married, they have to be adults and can marry anyone they like, irrespective of their caste and community. And widows can remarry too. All the women can vote and stand for elections. But these rights were not enjoyed by poor people, as they had little or no access to education. And all these things were different 200 years ago. At an early stage, most children were married. In some part of the country, women were forced to practice sati. Women's right to property were also restricted and there was no access to education. According to the caste system, Brahmins and Kshatriyas were considered as upper castes. Other such traders and moneylenders, often referred to as Vaishyas, were placed after them. Then came peasants and artisans, such as weavers and potters, referred to as Shudras. The lowest rung were those who labored to keep cities and villages clean or worked under upper castes. The upper caste considered these groups as untouchable. Working towards change. Debates and discussions about social customs and practices took on a new character. One important reason was the development of new forms of communication like books, newspapers, magazines, leaflets and pamphlets. All kinds of issues like social, political, economic and religious could be debated and discussed by men and sometimes by women in the new cities. Raja Ram Mohan Roy founded the Brahmo Sabha, later known as the Brahmo Samaj, in Calcutta. Ram Mohan Roy felt that changes were necessary in society and unjust practices needed to be done away with. He was keen to spread the knowledge of Western education in the country and bring about greater freedom and equality for women. Changing the lives of widows. Ram Mohan Roy began a campaign against the practice of sati. He tried to show through his writings that the practice of widow burning had no sanction in ancient texts. In 1829, sati was finally banned. Later reformers adopted the strategy of Ram Mohan to challenge a practice that seemed harmful and tried to find a verse or sentence in the ancient sacred texts that supported their point of view. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, through ancient texts, suggested that widows could remarry. In 1856, a law was passed permitting widow remarriage. By the second half of the 19th century, the movement of widow remarriage spread to other parts of the country. Swami Dayanand Saraswati founded the Arya Samaj to support widow remarriage. Now girls begin going to the school. Education for girls was necessary to improve their condition. In the mid-19th century, the first schools were opened. Many feared that schools would take girls away from home and prevent them from doing their domestic duties. To reach schools, girls had to travel through public places. Many people felt that girls should stay away from public spaces. So most educated women were taught at home by liberal fathers or husbands. In the latter part of the century, Arya Samaj established schools for girls in Punjab and Jyotirao Phule established schools in Maharashtra. In aristocratic Muslim households, women learnt to read the Quran in Arabic, taught by women who came home to teach. The first Urdu novels began to be written from the late 19th century. Now, women started writing about women. In the early 20th century, Begums of Bhopal played a notable role in promoting the education among women. They founded a primary school for girls at Aligarh. Begum Ruqayya Sakhawat Hussain started schools for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta. Indian women started going to universities by 1880s, where they were trained to be doctors and some became teachers. Pandita Ramabai wrote a book about the miserable lives of upper caste Hindu women. Many Hindu nationalists felt that Hindu women were adopting Western views and that this would corrupt Hindu culture and erode family values. By the end of 19th century, women wrote books, edited magazines, founded schools and training centers, and set up women's associations. They also formed political groups to push through laws for female suffrage, the right to vote of course, and better health care and education for women. In 20th century, Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose extended their support to demands for greater equality and freedom for women. From condition of women, now let's move our focus to the caste and the social reform. The Prarthana Samaj adhered to tradition of bhakti that believed in spiritual equality of all castes. The Paramhans Mandali, founded in Bombay in 1840, worked for abolition of caste. During the course of 19th century, Christian missionaries began setting up schools for tribal groups and lower caste children. At the same time, the poor from the villages and small towns, people from low caste began moving to the cities where there was a new demand for labor. Some also went to work in plantations in Assam, Mauritius, Trinidad and Indonesia. For the poor and the people from low caste, it was an opportunity to get away from the oppressive hold that upper caste landowners exercised over their lives and daily humiliation they suffered. Demands for equality and justice. By the second half of the 19th century, non-Brahmin caste began organizing movements against caste discrimination and demanded social equality and justice. The Satnami movement was founded by Ghasidas, who worked as the leather worker and organized a movement to improve their social status. In eastern Bengal, Haridas Thakur questioned Brahmanical texts that supported the caste system. Shri Narayan Guru proclaimed the ideals of unity for his people. He argued against treating people unequally on the basis of caste differences. Let's talk about Ghulam Giri. Jyotirao Phule was born in 1827, who developed his own ideas about the injustices of caste society. According to him, Brahmins were Aryans considered as foreigners, came from outside the subcontinent and defeated and subjugated those who had lived here before the coming of Aryans. Phule said that the upper caste had no right to their land and power. He claimed that before Aryan rule, there existed a golden age, when warrior peasants tilled the land and ruled the Maratha countryside fairly. He proposed that Shudras and Ati-Shudras should unite to challenge caste discrimination. The Satya Shodhak Samaj, founded by Phule, propagated caste equality. In 1873, Phule wrote a book named Ghulam Giri, meaning slavery. 10 years before this, the American Civil War led to the end of slavery in America. He dedicated his book to all those Americans who had fought to free slaves. Phule was concerned about the plight of upper caste women, the miseries of labor, and the humiliation of the low caste. So, who could enter temples? In 1927, Ambedkar started a temple entry movement supported by Mahar caste. Brahman priests were outraged when the Dalits used water from the temple tank. Ambedkar led 3 such movements for temple entry between 1927 and 1935. His aim was to make everyone see the power of the caste prejudice within the society. There were some non-Brahman movements as well. So let's talk about them. The non-Brahman movements were started. It was initiated by those non-Brahman castes that had acquired access to education, wealth, and influence. They argued that Brahmins were heirs of Aryan invaders from the north who had conquered southern lands for the original inhabitants of the region, the indigenous Dravidian races. E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar or Periyar joined Congress and left it when he found out that the lower caste were made to sit at the distance from the upper caste. Periyar founded the self-respect movement and argued that untouchables were the true upholders of an original Tamil and Dravidian culture which had been subjugated by Brahmins. Periyar was a critic of Hindu scriptures, especially the codes of Manu, the ancient lawgiver, and the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. According to him, these texts had been used to establish the authority of Brahmins over lower caste and domination of men over women. These assertions did not go unchallenged, which led to rethinking and some self-criticism among upper caste nationalist leaders. But Orthodox Hindu society reacted by founding Sanatan Dharma Sabhas and Bharat Dharma Mahamandal in the north, and associations like Brahman Sabha in Bengal. The objective of these associations was to uphold caste distinctions as a cornerstone of Hinduism and show how this was sanctified by scriptures. There has been a steady transformation in the status of the women in comparison to earlier periods. Women of today take part completely in areas such as politics, status, military sectors, economic, service, and the technology sectors. Moreover, they have contributed wholly in sports too. Thus, they have occupied a dignified position in society and family. We must not forget that Mahatma Gandhi fought against the social evils of racism, imperialism, communalism, and segregation, so-called untouchability. He was very much against social injustices, tyrannies, and oppressions. According to Mahatma, segregation was not a vital art of Hinduism. All socio-political changes in any society result from the thoughts of eminent thinkers. These thoughts influence not only a particular society or country to which a thinker belongs to, but many other parts of the world also. Such has been the case with the ideas and means suggested for attaining the social equality conceived by Western thinkers as well as their Indian counterparts. With the movement of time, the notion of equality, which was confined merely to social and political thinking, became a matter of legal consideration. As such, the awakening in the 19th and 20th centuries is affected by the consideration of equality, which has been incorporated in the Indian Constitution as well. Thus, equality has a history of its own in becoming a legal doctrine. India is the world's largest democracy with 1.2 billion people, and it is expected to be the world's most populous country by 2050. Where India makes progress towards development goals, the lives of hundreds of millions of people can be improved. In recent decades, India has made substantial progress to improve child nutrition, immunization rates, and educational enrollment rates, as well as to achieve broad economic growth. Yet, gender disparities persist against a backdrop of rapid economic growth. Rates of violence against women are still high. Women's participation in government is low, and discriminatory dowry and inheritance practice continue. The Constitution grants equality to women, ensures equality before the law, and prohibits discrimination against any citizen on the basis of religion, race, caste, gender, or place of birth. It also allows personal laws, however, resulting in a dual system that allows forms of discrimination against girls and women. India launched the National Mission for Empowerment of Women (NMEW) in 2010, mandated to facilitate the coordination of all programs related to women's welfare and their socio-economic development across all ministries and departments. The government leads specific initiatives focused on gender equality and other programs that, though not focused exclusively on girls and women, benefit them nonetheless, including its push to enhance access to the clean water and sanitation. Government is doing each and everything to uplift the women, but the society constitutes you and me. Nothing will change if our mindset will not change. This topic is open for the debate, and this cause is open for the concern. Let's take a quick look at what we did today. We started with working towards a change, where we got to know about the reforms carried out by Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Then we talked about changing the lives of widows, wherein we again discussed about Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Dayanand Saraswati and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, how education came to the forefront. Then we talked about the society, the social differences which were there in the society, and the untouchability. We also talked about how eminent scholars or the political figures came to the forefront to eradicate it. We talked about temples, we talked about untouchability, and then in the end we talked about the changes which has occurred over a period of time. Let's try to analyze what we have extracted out of today's session. On your screens, you can see a statement or a question. Along with that, there are 4 options. You have to pick the correct option. So, let's get going. Who supported the idea of self-respect movement? Mumtaz Ali, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Periyar, or Pandita Ramabai? It was actually Periyar who supported the idea of self-respect movement. Moving on, the idea of widow remarriage was advocated by Dayanand Saraswati, Jyoti Rao Phule, Periyar, or Pandita Ramabai. The idea of widow remarriage was advocated by Dayanand Saraswati. The Satya Shodhak Samaj Association was founded by Mumtaz Ali, Periyar, Jyoti Rao Phule, or B.R. Ambedkar. Satya Shodhak Samaj Association was founded by Jyoti Rao Phule. Moving on, E.V. Ramaswamy was known by the name Phule, Periyar, Vidyasagar, or Dayanand Saraswati. E.V. Ramaswamy was well known by the name of Periyar. During which period did Ambedkar lead 3 temple entry movement? Between 1900 to 1927, between 1927 to 1935, between 1935 to 1945, or between 1940 to 1945. The correct answer is option B, between 1927 to 1935. Prarthana Samaj was founded by H.L.V. Darozio, Swami Vivekanand, R.G. Bhandarkar, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Yes, Prarthana Samaj was founded by R.G. Bhandarkar. Who started schools of Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta? Mumtaz Ali, Begum Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain, Sayyid Ahmad Khan, or none of these? Yes, it was Begum Ruqayya Shekhawat Hussain who had started schools for Muslim girls in Patna and Calcutta. Alright, on your screens you can see 2 sets of words in column A and B. So let's match the columns. Orthodox. Orthodox are fanatic and fundamentalists. Suffrage. By suffrage we mean right to vote. Vaishyas. Vaishyas were traders and moneylenders. Shudras were peasants, artisans like weavers and potters. Sati, the woman who died on the funeral of her dead husband. Madigas, an important untouchable caste of Andhra Pradesh. Alright, let's see if these statements are true or false. Pandita Ramabai supported economic independence of women, set up widow homes. True. Reformers got full support from all sections of people of the country. False. Jyotirao Phule set up schools for girls in Punjab. False. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was founder of Brahma Samaj. True. People were dissatisfied with the British rule in 1870s and 1880s. True. Alright, let's fill in the blanks. The Child Marriage Restraints Act was passed in 1929. In 1873, Phule wrote Gulamgiri. In 1940, the Muslim League demanded independent state for Muslims. Independence Day was observed on 26th January 1930 all over the country. The knowledge of ancient texts helped the reformers promote new laws. Ambedkar was born in a Mahar family. Periyar was an outspoken critic of Hindu scriptures. Equality is the soul of liberty, and there is no liberty without equality. I hope today's session was fruitful for you. We'll be back with many more videos. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. Namaskar.